All right, so this video is going to be on the hidden benefits of pre-exhaustion. And this is something that a lot of lifters are familiar with, and there are secret benefits to this that get overlooked a ton. So, first off, the reason why this stuff gets overlooked is because you have bro science bodybuilders trying to claim that pre-exhaustion will unlock all these secret and magical gains, and that's not true. I do want to start this off by saying that is not true. But there are benefits that get overlooked because of that. So you have a lot of bodybuilders, and we've probably all heard this before, like, oh, do your pec deck and burn your muscles out before doing your bench press or something along the lines of that. So you have these people and you have science that basically says, no, pre-exhaustion does nothing. It doesn't increase the gains at all. That's just dumb. It's bro science. So everybody overlooks it. But for the people that think about this stuff a little bit deeper, there's actually a lot of secret kind of hidden benefits that get basically overlooked by the majority of lifters. And the reason why it gets overlooked is because you have a lot of beginners, and I say this because I've been there before, that say, okay, the science doesn't say it's any better. We'll kind of ignore that. We're looking for the secret, the magic that's going to unlock all these crazy gains. Obviously, you come to realize that doesn't exist. Like, yes, there's optimal training styles for individuals, but there's no secret magic formula that's going to get you all these crazy gains as in a different training method. But a lot of people overlook this because basically bro science bodybuilders think this stuff is magic, and it's not. But then when you talk to someone that tries to go by the science, they say, oh, it's nothing special, it's not worth doing. But if you look and think about this stuff a little bit deeper, there are lots of hidden benefits. So I think I've got my point across. Let me get into my notes here. So to start, the science does say this will result in similar muscular gains. So now that we've established that in general for most people, you will have the same muscular gains if you do isolations first and then your compounds after, or vice versa. So to get the science out of the way before someone tries to tell me that it's just not the case, they have the same muscular gains most of the time. We can rely on that for sure. At first glance, pre-exhaustion seems like a waste of time, and that is why nobody talks about it. But if you think about it, there are hidden benefits for hypertrophy that are overlooked by everyone. So when I say pre-exhausting, I'm referring to training isolations before compounds for those people that don't know what this is. So I do have 3 points today on why this is potentially a good method, especially once you're past the beginner stage. And just to clarify why I say generally past the beginner stage is because it's always good to actually have some skill and coordination. And I don't like to use the word strength because I'm not referring to absolute strength, and a lot of people get that twisted up. Learning coordination and learning the skill of an actual compound lift is super beneficial for you in the long run. You don't have to milk the gains out until you're deadlifting 700 pounds, but using a few compound movements to build up a full body skill and coordination base before going into this is generally helpful, and you just can't train those movements optimally if your muscles are fried with isolation movements in the first hand. So the first benefit to isolation movements before compound movements, aka pre-exhaustion, is going to be starting off with a bodybuilding style rather than a strength focus. So it's the mindset. So when you go into a movement, doing an isolation movement, obviously your biggest focus is going to be mind-muscle connection, full range of motion. You want to feel it in that muscle group, whatever you're working right now. And you start off with a bodybuilding mindset. There's no ego attached to any isolation lifts. I've kind of talked about that before with your lifting social status and the pressure that we have to put up big numbers on compound lifts. Nobody cares about how much they bicep curl or leg extension or tricep push down. So your mindset starts off right. You start that session off in a bodybuilding mindset. And that is crucial because once your muscles are tired, it actually will hurt your ability to perform, which will kind of make you drop your ego a little bit and train your compound movements at the end of the workout more in a hypertrophy style, which is the goal. If you go into a compound movement fresh and you know you're able to put up those big numbers, it's hard to kind of put that aside. So this actually will help a lot of people. So the first benefit, 100%, is going to be the mindset. Go into your session with a hypertrophy muscle building mindset. That will help you a lot. Hypertrophy will be best when you're training with the 4 principles and the 4 fundamentals of hypertrophy that I've talked about, regardless of weight used, as long as it's practical and actually fits your protocol for that lift. The second point I have here, and the second benefit of pre-exhaustion, this will allow you to use less weight, which saves your fatigue and your warm-up time. Once you get past that kind of beginner stage, warm-up time starts to become an actual legitimate factor in your training. You'll notice that when you're doing these big heavy compounds to start and you're doing a ton of weight on one of those lifts, it takes you a long time to actually get primed and warm up to do that lift. Whether it's mental or physical, or typically a combination of both, warm-up time is a legitimate factor when it comes to your training, especially if you're training on limited time and you're a busy person. So you almost use your isolations as your warm-up for your compounds, but you're also getting benefit from those warm-ups where you typically wouldn't when you're warming up for a compound lift, at least in a muscular gains way. So you start much more primed and you don't have to go as far anyways. When I say far, I'm talking about total weight used. So this will also save your joints potentially, which is a huge factor for long-term hypertrophy. Your joints do tend to get a little bit worn out, and whether it forces you to just take time off compound lifts or deload or whatever, I see both of those as kind of a waste of time. So keeping your load light when you do get kind of inconveniently strong as a more intermediate or advanced lifter, that's a pretty big factor, and that's a pretty big way you can actually help your longevity and just mental clarity when it comes to lifting. So the third and final point that I have for this is your targeted muscle will be much closer in proximity to failure by finishing with compounds. So that will ensure that your muscle gets the most out of it. So this point I think is a pretty solid one, because with compound movements, it's tough to tell what your weakest link is. It's pretty tough to diagnose. Like, we can see what movement or what bar path you're biasing for sure, but it is very difficult to actually say, what's my weak link during that movement? If one of your muscle groups has been smoked by like 10 sets of isolations beforehand, that's probably going to be your weak link, and that's going to hit failure first. And obviously proximity to failure being a pretty crucial part of hypertrophy, this is awesome because you can use less weight. You're guaranteed to take that muscle to failure, or at least close to it in the first place. So this is awesome. So to summarize this video, it's not going to be anything revolutionary, but there are benefits, and this is a more practical way of training for a lot of people. And this can be basically a benefit for a lot of your training career once you're kind of past that beginner stage. So I would definitely recommend considering this and at least experimenting with it a little bit. I'm not saying you have to do it. It's definitely not necessary, but there are a lot of hidden benefits within that I went over today. So if you have any questions, let me know.